MILLIONAIRE, Elon Musk stuns America with words that left Donald Trump speechless. A thunderclap shattered the usual hum of the city, and all eyes snapped to the massive LED screens towering over Neon Square. Elijah Marks, the tech tycoon nobody could stop talking about, just dropped a bombshell that echoed across the nation. The man who built his empire on dreams nobody dared to dream dared to say this: information is power, but power belongs to the people. The crowd below roared, or maybe it was shocked silence first. Elijah's voice, sharp and unyielding, cut through the concrete jungle. Skyscrapers glittered cold under neon lights, but his words burned hotter than any of their cold steel. He wasn't just unveiling another gadget. No, he was promising a revolution. Elijah Marks, the wild card in America's fragile future, introduced a platform so radical it shattered traditions. A system where every person, no matter where they stood, could access all information, no filter. The establishment! Former President Nathan Cross brandishes threats behind closed doors. Truth or chaos? The New Age information war begins! The media swarm was relentless, hungry for anything, facts, rumors, or scandal. But behind a bright spotlight, whispers crept in shadows darker than the neon-lit alleyways. Secrets, buried deep like sharp glass. Elijah's face, so confident during the announcement, faltered for a dangerous moment when the cameras flashed questions no one expected. Questions tying him directly to Nathan Cross, the man who governed with an iron fist before stepping into the shadows. Between the endless buzz, a lone voice broke through, a trembling woman near the front, whispering, "They say he's not just a tech genius, that he shares more than ideas with Cross." Her eyes were wide, throat tight with fear. The crowd leaned in, breath caught, as if the air itself trembled with what that could mean. Elijah's fists clenched hacia sus aires, his mind raced, flashes de pasados débitos, encuentros guados en carusas luces, promesas irreparadas. ¿Su sueño venía del puro sin cambio? ¿O es algo más emberido? Esa pregunta cargaba en su pecho como un calvo quental. Fuera sirenas pelaron de lejanos lotes. En algún lugar, una ciudad encopada, arrepintiendo entre aquellos que veían a Elijah como salvador y aquellos que lo llamaban amenaza. La noche se empezó. Fear and hope mixed like gasoline and fire. Then, just when Elijah opened his mouth to speak again, reveal a truth that might tip the scales, the room plunged into chaos. A sharp beep cut through the tension. An emergency transmission hijacked every device, drowning out his words. The message? A scandal that could swallow every promise, every secret, every hope. And there it hung, frozen in the air, like a pulse of electricity. What was coming next? How far would Elijah Marks go to protect his vision? And what darkness waited in the past, just behind all those bright screens? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, What city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who... The lights pulsed wildly, drowning out Elijah's voice. The emergency message flickered across every screen, loud and unavoidable. It flashed white letters, Nathan Cross, an unseen alliance exposed. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people squinted at the glowing words, their hearts thunderous. Elijah felt the ground shift beneath him. A pit formed in his stomach. The accusation hung heavily, as if each word were a weight attached to chains dragging him down. What could they expose? What were they trying to do? The murmurs escalated, rising into a chaotic hum. His mind scrambled to make sense of it all. He had fought his way through the dark, tangled web of his past, convinced he could break free. But now they were dragging his name right into the pit with Nathan. The crowd swayed like a living organism, a heartbeat of fear and uncertainty. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, more explosive than the sirens outside. The screens rippled with static before revealing a shaky live stream. A figure, cloaked in shadow, stepped into view. The crowd's energy shifted, a collective intake of breath, awe, or dread. Listen closely, America. The voice rang out, eerily calm, yet charged with intensity. Elijah Marks and Nathan Cross have been in collusion for years. Together, they planned this very moment. Time hung still, hollow. Eyes darted. Some squinted, trying to glimpse the figure. Others recoiled in disbelief. A whisper snaked through the thrumming crowd. Is this a joke? It can't be true. Elijah couldn't feel his heart, el verde luz pulsante de las ventanas, sin ambiente ominoso. Todo promesa, mentiras. Toda visión vendida. Fue en pedie trapa. El pulsante realidad se quedó atrás, en esas salas donde ambición mezcla con desesperación. Fueron inocentes. Era todo tan rocío, tan real. He opened his mouth to respond, but words slipped away like sand through fingers. What could he say? Was he even innocent? An alliance spawn of greed, the voice continued. Not only does Elijah dream of power, but he secretly works to hand it over to Cross, to manipulate the very people he claims to protect. Staring into the sea of faces, he could read the turmoil. Confusion morphed to anger. A young man clenched his fists, his eyes ablaze, while an older woman gasped, hand to her mouth, eyes wide. The crowd moved from support to jeers, now questioning him. Then the shocking twist hit like electric shockwaves. Elijah Marks is more than a puppet, the shadowy figure revealed. He is Nathan Cross's son. The ground beneath Elijah's feet crumbled. Shock swept through him, sharp and biting. He staggered back as if an unseen force had struck him. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Whispers turned into shouts. Accusing voices colliding like waves. Stop! Elijah finally managed, raising his hands. But it was too late. The truth sliced through the night, echoing in every corner. It twisted everything he believed about himself, turned allies into adversaries, dreamers into disillusioned souls. Bile rose in his throat. There was no place to hide. Outside, sirens grew louder. A storm was brewing. What darkness had he steered into? What truth did he truly own? And in that heavy moment of realization, he knew this was only the beginning. The foundation of everything he fought for was crumbling around him as doubt crept into the hearts of those who once believed in him. What could emerge from this chaos? Elijah's gaze caught in the lights, the crowd now a sea of disbelief, anger, and betrayal. He had a choice to make, but what could follow? The future twisted like smoke in the night, dark and uncertain. The emergency transmission slammed into the air with a jarring urgency, drowning Elijah's voice in a sea of static. Just then, the screens blinked, transitioning from Elijah's impassioned face to a darkened room. A distorted image of a man sitting in shadows loomed. A low voice began to spill secrets like poison. "This is Nathan Cross," the voice rumbled, unmistakably familiar. "You thought you could bury the truth, Elijah? You were..." The crowd shifted, hearts racing. Elijah's expression twisted from determination to disbelief. His vision narrowing as realization crashed over him. Cross wasn't just a former adversary. He was the puppeteer, pulling strings that tied them together. "Nathan, you can't just..." Elijah stammered, cutting off his words. But the broadcast continued. Nathan leaned closer to the camera, the flickering lights revealing a sly smile. "I've played my hand well, and I have something to reveal. Something the world needs to know." Another screen flashed, exploding with images. Elijah laughing with Cross at a posh gala. A whispered conversation cloaked in shadows, hands clasped in a conspiratorial shake. Connections were drawn, allegations made. Only now the images twisted like daggers, stabbing into Elijah's public persona. The crowd murmured wildly, tension thick enough to choke on. The trembling woman from before, no longer just a voice in the crowd, stood there, her expression a frozen M. She gasped, a few related shouts echoing her. What had seemed like a revolutionary declaration now felt like a jarring betrayal. Trust began to unravel. Elijah's fists clenched harder, the sharp edges biting into his palms. His heart thudded heavily. Did he share more than just ideas with Nathan Cross? Anxiety clawed at him, each question darker than the last. The whispers darkened into a storm around him. Voices swirled together like a dark tide. "Is it true?" another yelled. "Kid, you sell out!" Thump, thump. The city's heart beat through the chaos, a jarring rhythm of fear and confusion. Elijah had built his empire on hope, but now it felt as fragile as glass in an angry storm, ready to shatter. Is but a tarnished knight in shining armor. You want your power, America? Stop looking to the front man and start watching every hand behind the curtain. A cold wave kissed Elijah's spine. Was Nathan more than just a shadow? Did he have ties deep enough to expose the very foundation of his dreams? Faces turned in judgment, eyes narrowed with anger or confusion. The crowd began to split, some shouting in support of Elijah, others demanding answers. Was it more chaos? No, this time it wasn't Nathan. It took a heartbeat for the new face to materialize, and it was like stepping into ice water. The screen froze upon the image of a woman, their mother. her face pale, eyes wide with fear. "Elijah, I'm running out of time. You have to know." The signal crackled badly, cutting her short. But the weight of her presence shattered the moment. The crowd gasped. Whispers spiraled into panic. What did she know? What had he missed? His world turned upside down, pulling him deeper into shadows he never saw coming. Elijah Marks, with his revolution, was suddenly a man caught between tangled loyalties and hidden truths. Fledgling dreams, fretting dangerously close to ruin. The crowd began to recede, confusion giving way to fear, pulling Elijah down a path he hadn't dared to tread but now seemed inevitable. And just when the night couldn't get darker, the sirens blared once more, a chorus of chaos that echoed the fear now flooding the square. What lay ahead? Who could be trusted? The stakes had never felt higher, and Elijah was caught in a web of truth and betrayal, leaving everyone wondering, how far would he go to uncover what had been hidden? The emergency broadcast flickered, drawing everyone's focus to the flickering screen. Elijah felt a chill run down his spine as the hushed crowd strained to hear Nathan Cross's taunting words. But just as he resolved to reject the accusations, a sound pierced the air. A loud bang echoed through Neon Square, reverberating like the tolling of a bell. Everyone turned, eyes wide, hearts racing. Just outside the thrumming sea of bodies, a figure stumbled into view, gasping for breath. A woman, bloodied and frantic, she cried, her voice breaking, raw with desperation. "You have to listen, they—" The crowd gasped again, fear flashing across faces, whispers turning from accusations to concern. Elijah's heart stopped. The chaos around him vanished as he locked eyes with her. The intensity of that moment made everything else feel distant. "Mara?" he managed, fear creeping into his voice. "What's going on? What do you know?" She took another step forward, blood dripping from her forehead. Her eyes were wild, filled with fear, but also something else. Urgency. "It's all a setup!" "Nathan, no. You need to understand. Everything he's been feeding you, it's not what it seems." Elijah's breath caught in his throat. Shadows danced in his mind as he wrestled with the implications of her words. But before he could respond, another loud pop echoed. A distant explosion lit the sky, and the crowd erupted into a panic. People screaming, pushing, shoving to get away. "Listen!" Mara shouted, voice cracking. "He's not who you think. This revolution, it's personal. You don't know the truth about our family." Elijah felt the ground beneath him quake with each revelation, doubt flooding his mind. "What do you mean, personal?" But before she could answer, flashes of police lights cut through the chaos. The sirens louder, drawing closer. He looked back at the screens, still broadcasting Nathan's face. Now smirking, as if enjoying the unfolding drama. Suddenly, a minion to his villain's plot. "Fleeing!" Mara's voice broke through again, urgency clawing at him. "You have to trust me, Elijah. Nathan, he's used us. It's all a trap." A sinking feeling settled in his chest, sweats trickling down his back. Everything he built, every speech he made, stretched under the pressure of reckoning. The crowd's fear morphed into anger. Words like traitor and liar were hurled like missiles aimed at him. "Get back! Get back!" someone yelled, pushing through the crowd. And suddenly, amid the chaos, a gunshot rang out. Time froze. A scream pierced the air, visceral and raw, followed by the sound of a body hitting the ground. Elijah turned, eyes wide, and there it was, Mara, crumpling to the ground, legs giving way under her. The world spun. Her blood pooled beneath her like an oil spill on the pavement, shock ripping through the onlookers. No. He lunged, crashing through the sea of terror. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. Hands reached to him, trying to pull him back. "Get away!" they shouted. But he pushed through, desperation clawing at every ounce of his being. Mara lay still, face pale, breath shallow. "Elijah," she whispered, eyes swimming with pain. The truth? But that was it. The color drained from her cheeks, and the light faded from her eyes. The reality slammed into him like a freight train. The weight of betrayal, the loss of family, a world morphing into chaos. In that very moment, a cold fury replaced the uncertainty. As sirens blared, and the wind screamed through the square, a small piece of paper slipped from Mara's hand, fluttering in the air like a feather. "Elijah!" Nathan's voice cut through again, more chaotic than before. But the question echoed in his mind. What truth had Mara wanted to tell him? And what demonic game had he unknowingly been swept into? Time hung heavy in the air as Elijah's world crumbled. The path ahead blurred, obscured by shadows of anger and murky secrets yearning to emerge. The emergency transmission loomed over the crowd like a dark storm cloud, an unyielding force that swallowed Elijah's voice. The screen flickered, then displayed a stark image. Nathan Cross, the former president, his eyes cold and calculating, seemed to glow against the neon backdrop. "Citizens of America," he announced, his voice a grimace of familiarity. "I come to you today with breaking news that shatters everything you thought you knew about Elijah Marks." The crowd gasped. Murmurs exploded like firecrackers. Elijah's heart raced. This was not how it was supposed to go. Cross continued, and every word dripped with venom. "He claims to fight for your freedom, yet he stands on a foundation of deceit and tyranny. You think you know him? You are blinded. This man has been playing both sides, weaving a web of lies thick enough to ensnare even the most vigilant." Shockwaves rippled through Neon Square. Faces twisted in confusion and disbelief. Elijah's towering image blurred on the screen, replaced by Cross's chilling smile. The former president leaned closer to the camera, his voice lowered. "I have proof, and I'm not talking about the convenient truths he dangles before you. I'm talking about contracts, deals made in the dark, money exchanged under the table. Elijah doesn't just know me, he has been my partner." Gasps echoed around the square like a sudden intake of breath in a hushed room. A woman near the front cried out, "No, it can't be true!" But even as she spoke, doubt hung thick in the air. Was Elijah really part of a monstrous deception? The screen split again, Flashes of documents, names, signatures danced across the LED, hurling betrayal like knives. Elijah felt a gut punch, his breath quickening as the scattered fragments whispered his past. Circles of power, shadows he thought he'd escaped. The brutal reality of his ambition. No, no, he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. This wasn't part of the plan. The crowd had once rallied around him, but now he saw fear and anger crystallize into something dangerous. He raised a hand to speak, to fight back against the lies. But before he could form a sentence, a loud crash echoed. A window shattered on a nearby building. Glass raining down like confetti of chaos. The crowd screamed. Panic swept through them like wildfire. Everyone was on edge, faces pale against the neon glow. "People, listen!" Elijah cried, his heart pounding, hands trembling. "You have to trust." But the words were drowned out by another sudden beep, louder this time, the screens flaring back to life with a new image. Only it was not Nathan Cross. It was Elijah's own face, distorted and ugly with shadows. The background littered with flashing police sirens and tape marking a crime scene. Wanted for conspiracy, wanted for treason. The words flashed across the screen like an accusation. Shock. Raw disbelief. The city stood frozen, the world shattering in real time. All the hope that had sparked in the air a moment ago went dark, replaced by dread. Elijah pressed his fingers to his lips, eyes wide. The truth twisted, morphing into something monstrous, something he never dreamed. Was this the end? Rumbling tension rippled through the crowd, then shifting between rage and fear. And Elijah realized the fight ahead would be far more than he had ever imagined. Trust hung by a thread. Was Cross manipulating him? Or had he been the puppet all along? The stakes had never been higher, and darkness clung to his intentions like a second skin. What lay unraveling in the shadows, waiting to tear their world apart? The chaos hung in the air like a thick fog. Elijah stood frozen, breath caught in his throat. The emergency transmission blared, drowning out his thoughts, while the crowd buzzed with confusion and fear. What could possibly be more shocking than what he'd just said? But then, clear as day, the screen behind him flickered, warping into a live feed. It wasn't just news. It was a form of accusation. "This just in," the announcer stammered, wide-eyed and pale. "A new leak reveals that Elijah Marks is not just a tech innovator. He's also connected to dark corporate interests that seek to manipulate information for profit." Gasps resonated through the crowd. Conversations erupted. Whispers turned into roars of disbelief. Elijah blinked hard. No, that couldn't be. He had devoted his life to transparency, to making history a shared experience. His hands trembled slightly. Were the rumors true? Connections to Nathan Cross? Had he been so blind to the layers of greed hidden in what he thought were noble ambitions? The screen cut to footage of late-night meetings, hushed voices, shadows dancing under dim lights. Faces he thought were allies twisted into figures of distrust. His stomach twisted, a cold knot forming. The very people he trusted might not have been who they claimed to be. Then, the announcer continued. Sources indicate a possible betrayal from within Mark's own camp, revealing that someone has been feeding private information to potential rivals. Elijah's heart raced. Betrayal? Who? He scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces, friends, advisors, the loyal band that believed in the dream. And then he saw it, a figure in the back, someone he thought was always on his side, looked away. No eye contact, just a masked face, hiding a million secrets. Liam? Elijah's voice broke through the chaos, sharp and clear. Is it you? Are you the one feeding them this? Liam, his right-hand man, slowly turned around. The fear in his eyes was unmistakable. I didn't want this, he stuttered, panic rising in his voice. You need to understand. No, Elijah shouted, anger surging like a tidal wave. You've done more than betray me. You've betrayed everything we built. The energy shifted, the crowd, torn between sympathy for Elijah and the sudden realization that the man who championed honesty was entangled in deceit deeper than anyone expected. Murmurs cascaded through the audience like ripples in water. The air grew heavy with judgment. Then, without warning, the screens went black. Silence cloaked Neon Square, a suspended heartbeat, and just as abruptly, something monumental flickered back to life. Warning, system compromised. Red letters flashed across multiple screens like a warning bell, an unwelcome alarm. Panic erupted. People shouted, scrambled. But Elijah stood frozen again. What had he unleashed? Did he teach the world too well? The truth was slipping tighter around him, binding him to shadows he never thought he'd uncover. Liam was gone. The trust he'd built vanished like smoke. Sirens wailed outside, but it was nothing compared to the roar of his own spiraling thoughts. Was he the hero, or had he become something far worse? Wait, he called, but it was too late. The crowd was dispersing, fear breaking the spell of unity. Shouts mixed with chaos, leaving behind electrifying uncertainty. And just as the last flicker of light vanished from the screens, a single question lingered in the air. Who was really pulling the strings in this dangerous game? Buried deep was the truth, waiting to claw its way out. And Elijah's vision teetered on the brink of collapse, leaving murky shadows in its wake. The emergency transmission blasted across the screens, warping the atmosphere into a knot of anxiety. As if flipping a switch, the noise of the crowd turned into gasps and murmurs. "What is this?" a voice from the back yelled, trying to cut through the static of confusion. No one could have anticipated the chaos about to unfold. Elijah Marks is an agent of misinformation. A static-laden voice echoed through the air, sending chills skittering down spines. People shifted uneasily, faces pale under the neon lights. He's been working with Nathan Cross all along. The truth is, they're partners in this game. The screen flashed a series of images. Elijah looking close with Cross, laughing in private meetings, exchanging documents, plans, secrets. Shockwaves tore through the crowd. Elijah's heart thundered in his chest. How could this be? There must be a mistake. Panic flickered in his eyes. He wasn't prepared for this blow. The promise of revolution hung by a thread, and now everyone was looking at him, eyes filled with distrust. "Shut it down!" someone shouted, the urgency palpable. But Elijah stood frozen, his legs anchored to the ground, as disbelief washed over him like icy water. The voices of the crowd turned hostile, the whispers morphing into accusations. "Traitor! Liar! We trusted you!" With every word, a weight pressed tighter around his throat. Memories twisted and turned in his mind. He thought of all the times he had sworn to fight against the system, to liberate the oppressed. He had imagined change, not betrayal. ... Had he been naive? Or worse, complicit? Amid the turmoil, a woman's voice broke through the chaos. "This can't be true. Elijah wouldn't—" Her words trembled, but the collective skepticism drowned her out. Crowds began to thin, people backing away, eyes still locked on him. They had turned from admirers to judges in the blink of an eye. Then came the realization. A figure in the background, shrouded in shadow, silhouetted against the bright screens. Nathan Cross. The corner of Elijah's mouth twitched downward. How could Cross be involved? The man he swore he'd never align with was now part of this chaos, seemingly orchestrating it from afar. But what if it weren't a mere alignment? What if he was the puppet master, pulling the strings all along? Elijah's fists clenched tighter, grappling with despair. Could his vision of change have been tainted? Was he a pawn in someone else's game? As he opened his mouth to deny the accusation, hoping to clarify, another message flashed on the screen, cutting him off. Breaking. A secret taped conversation between Elijah Marks and Nathan Cross. The crowd's gasps echoed like a drumbeat, the air thickening with tension. Questions swirled. Had they really shared secrets, strategies? Was he part of Cross's manipulation? Or had he been blind all along? Dread pooled in his stomach, amplifying the growing wariness in the crowd. This would shake everything to its core. Just then, the emergency broadcast intensified, the words echoing in a haunting loop. Is it too late to turn back? The truth is far more dangerous than you can imagine. A shiver cascaded through him, a realization settling in. If they could expose him, they could expose everything. Each secret, every lie, was hanging precariously. As the heart of Neon Square began to close in, breaths shortened. Hope and chaos contorted into one. Would the revolution he dreamed of collapse under this weight? Would they see a savior or a deceiver? As Elijah faced the crowd, a storm brewing inside him, he knew one thing. The path he thought he was on had just taken a dark, uncertain turn. What truth would come to light next? And who would pay the price? The chaos of Neon Square swirled around Elijah like a storm, each accusation ringing louder, drowning his reason. He was a man caught in a trap, a puppet on strings he thought he had cut. But amidst the noise, another sound broke through, distant but distinct, like thunder rumbling ominously on a clear day. And then he saw it. The crowd started to shift, eyes darting towards something behind him. A flicker caught his attention, and he turned to see the light of a drone hovering above, its camera lens focused on him like a predator locking onto prey. Panic surged. What were they broadcasting? What new humiliation awaited him? "Elijah!" a voice shouted, urgent and frantic. It was Mara, still on the ground, struggling to rise, her blood pooling like a red flag against the asphalt. "Elijah, look out!" But it was too late. The drone emitted a low roar and dove down, plummeting toward the crowd. Elijah's heart raced. Time slowed as the drone surged down, and instinct kicked in. He lunged, arms outstretched to push it away, a desperate and futile gesture. "Get down!" someone yelled, and the crowd erupted into a frenzy, scattering like startled birds. A split second later, a violent explosion rocked the ground. The drone detonated, a shower of debris raining down as screams filled the air. Elijah shielded his face, adrenaline flooding through his veins. Smoke and confusion enveloped him, the ground vibrating beneath his feet. As he looked around, everything was blurred. Faces twisted in terror. A kaleidoscope of fear lit by the chaos. Harsh neon lights flickering in the haze. Then something changed. A figure crawled from the wreckage of the drone, rising slowly through the smoke. It was cloaked in darkness, more shadow than substance. The crowd fell silent, fear knitting tightly in the air. This was no ordinary attack. Something deep and sinister laid behind it. "Who are you?" Elijah shouted, struggling to make himself heard over the crackling debris. The figure stumbled forward, revealing a familiar face, burned and battered, but unmistakable. It was Liam. "Elijah!" He gasped, voice filled with pain. "It was never about you. It was about me." Elijah's mind reeled. Liam? Had he been the traitor all along? Was this the plan? But before he could process the betrayal, Liam continued, his voice raw. "I didn't have a choice. They're coming for you. For all of us. Nathan, he's not who you think." "What do you mean?" Elijah struggled to keep up, the dizzying revelations spinning around him. "You set me up! You used me!" "No!" Liam winced, clutching his side. "Not like that! I had to protect you. If you knew the truth." "No!" Elijah shot back, anger fueling his words. "You know what? I don't want to hear it!" This was beyond any betrayal he could fathom. Doubt clawed at him, but just then, an even deeper darkness loomed behind them. A flash of movement, looming shadows creeping from the alleys. "He's lying!" a voice bellowed, mixed with authority, echoing through the smoke. It was Nathan Cross, stepping into view, flanked by armed guards. "Mara!" Elijah shouted, turning. She lay on the ground, pale and still. Panic gripped him, a lump forming in his throat. This was all spiraling into something incomprehensible, something he couldn't control. Nathan's face twisted into a sly grin. "Ah, Elijah, your sister is not dead. She's the key to everything, and deep down you knew it. Just like you knew that you were never meant to lead a revolution. You're meant to follow." Elijah felt the ground shift once more. "What?" His voice faltered. Questions whirled. The walls he had built were coming down. What other secrets lay hidden in this web of lies? The crowd gasped, and the tension escalated. He felt eyes on him. Disbelief, anger. "Nathan!" Elijah shouted, pulling his voice from despair. "You have no power here. I'll expose everything." But Nathan simply laughed, and the sound echoed in the depths of the chaos. "Then we will see how long you survive." With those words, something inside Elijah cracked wide open. A deep fissure that unleashed a torrent of fear and uncertainty. As the chaos whirled around him, he knew everything he thought he understood about trust. Loyalty and power was hanging by a thread, ready to snap. What was the truth? And as sirens wailed in the background, the question loomed, heavier than the smoke that filled the square. How much darkness lay ahead, and what price must be paid for freedom? Elijah stood paralyzed, staring into Nathan's twisted smile. "Ark not formed in his chest as disbelief watched over him. How could this be happening? And en la caos de la gente, Liam's blodio figura exaculento, desesperación en sus ojos. Yet Nathan Cross, sin pez de dudas en tu manoche, with his arms cracked, casi que disfruta bien. That's all you have, Elijah?" Nathan taunted, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you can turn the people against me? Pathetic." Just then, the ground trembled again. A thunderous roar erupted from abajo. El helicóptero silbaba del humo, cortando minosamente bajito sobre la gente. El viento mueta las faces, cabellos torcidos y se envuelven. Pánico surgió en densidades entre miedo y confusión. Elijah squinted upward, his heart racing. "What now?" "Look out!" someone shouted. An instinct kicked in. Elijah shoved Liam to the side. They fell together, the crowd scattering like startled ants. The world turned into a blur of screams and disarray, every second seeping with dread. Then, with a deafening whoosh, a black figure swooped down from the helicopter. The unmistakable sound of boots against the pavement echoed as a man dropped into the fray. Suddenly, time slowed. The stranger stood tall, silhouette strong agante la sombra de los neon lights. "Estape todo," his voice rasgando la histeria. Faces turned toward him, eyes wide. "I'm here to help." The commotion stilled, breaths caught. But before any words of distrust could rise, the man ripped off his mask. Shock rippled through the crowd. It was Jackson, Elijah's childhood friend, someone thought lost to the shadows long ago. "Elijah!" Jackson shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "You have to listen. It's all a play, part of a bigger game." "Jackson?" Elijah breathed, disbelief flashing across his face. "You're alive? But I thought, we all thought." "I'll explain later. Right now, we need to expose Nathan. The truth goes deeper than you can imagine." Jackson rushed through the crowd, eyes darting to each person. "He's been manipulating data, creating chaos. Everything is staged. You think this is a revolution?" His voice trembled, hope and fear clashing in each word. "He wants control over you. All of you." Silence hung in the air, thick as fog. Faces turned toward Nathan, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Were the systems they relied on built on shifted sands? How far did Nathan's machinations stretch? The crowd murmured, shifting between allies and enemies. But just as Elijah felt hope twinkle like a distant star, a loud thud erupted from the hovering helicopter. A high-tech device dropped, slamming into the ground. The crowd flinched, gasping in tandem as it opened like a clamshell, revealing a screen alive with scrolling data. Alert! New system in effect! Elijah's heart raced. What was happening? Fear coiled tight in his stomach. The device showed private conversations involving the crowd, their secrets laid bare for all to see, twisted by Nathan's influence. Whispers of betrayal, moments of vulnerability, trust disintegrated before his eyes. No! The urgency twisted his voice. This can't be how it ends. But Elijah felt the ground beneath him shatter. Relationships fracturing like fragile glass. Faces of friends turned away. Mistrust creeping in. The screen blinked and bare. Amidst the static, a name flashed. His mother's name. "Mom?" he murmured, confusion and dread tightening their grip. Suddenly, the device exploded. A blinding flash of light erupted, engulfing the square. Pain seared through Elijah's chest as darkness swallowed him whole. When he blinked again, time had vanished. Faces became blurred silhouettes. Screams faded into nothingness, and from the rubble, a voice rose up, deeper than the chaos, echoing in a twisted melody. Elijah, secrets are like fog. They can smother you in an instant. Your mother knows the truth. Don't you see? The voice melted into the shadows, leaving Elijah gasping for air. Was this a warning or a threat? Everything that felt real now hung in the balance, shrouded in uncertainty. What was the truth? Where did betrayal end and loyalty begin? And in that moment of anguish, all he could do was stare into the darkness, lost and bewildered, with questions clawing at the edges of his mind. What more awaited him in this sinister game? As the smoke cleared, a tense stillness enveloped Neon Square. Elijah blinked, struggling to process the chaos that had erupted just moments ago. The crowd pushed forward, eyes wide, whispers swirling like dry leaves in the wind. Jackson stood, urgency painted across his face, as he confronted Nathan Cross, who loomed menacingly nearby, a serpent in the grass. "Elijah, we don't have much time," Jackson shouted, stepping closer. "This is your moment. You have to expose him." Hope flickered in the air, but Elijah felt the weight of fear crushing his chest like a vice. "Expose him?" Y echo, glanciando a Natán. "How? He has todo. Información, control. Es la voz que la gente está empezando a creer." With fire in his eyes, Jackson replied, "The truth siempre llega a la luz. We must show them what Natán's eye. He's not here for the revolution. He's here to keep the power for himself." Elijah's heart raced. The faces around him, once filled with support, now showed doubt mixed with fear. The illusion of unity shattered. He thought of Mara. He thought of the blood on the pavement. We can't afford to lose anyone else. Suddenly, to his left, a soft gasp pierced the tension. "Is that my mother?" he whispered, eyes wide as he spotted a familiar figure emerging from the rising smoke. She looked older, wearier, but it was clear it was her. His heart leapt as she pushed her way through the crowd, anguish in her eyes. "Mom!" he cried, rushing toward her as time stretched painfully. But she shook her head, stepping forward, urgency cracking her voice. "Elijah, listen, I've been trying to protect you. But Nathan, he has plans, and they include you. You're caught up in something far greater." The weight of her words pressed down like a thick blanket. Elijah's hands trembled. "What do you mean?" he asked, fear building in his throat. "It's a trap. The whole idea of a revolution, it feeds into his bigger game. We have to dismantle it from the inside." Elijah's resolve stiffened. This was not the world he imagined. The promise of freedom hung by a thread, and he was the one holding the scissors. He turned to Jackson, and the determination in his friend's eyes fortified him. "Okay," Elijah said, firming his stance. "Let's expose this truth." Jackson nodded vigorously, his voice raising. "Everyone, listen!" The crowd began to quiet, shifting focus back to the duo. "Nathan Cross isn't your leader. He's a manipulator. We are being led to believe we are part of something when we are actually just fodder in his game." A ripple of disbelief spread through the gathering, but it was enough to spark curiosity. Elijah opened his mouth again, drawing strength from the depths of his pain. "Trust is not a weapon," he yelled, his voice rising with passion. "It's a tool for unity. Together we can take this darkness down." The tension shifted, igniting a spark of rebellion in the crowd. Voices rose in agreement. Together, they stepped forward, forming an impenetrable wall against Nathan's manipulation. His expression hardened as he realized he was losing control. "You're making a mistake," Nathan screamed, glaring. "You're playing with fire." But Elijah felt the warmth of hope flicker to life. "No, Nathan, we're claiming our truth, and we will expose your lies." But Nathan only smirked, stepping back slightly, hands lifted in surrender. Shadows shifted across his face. "Think you can stop me? The people are already talking." With that, he produced a small device. "I have enough data to bury you all. Your secrets, their darkest fears, it's all mine." But Elijah couldn't back down now. "Then we'll fight back. We will share what you've hidden." As he spoke, the world exploded into flashes of bright light, sirens ringing deafeningly. The helicopter roared overhead, and the crowd erupted as police began to flood in. "Do something!" Elijah shouted, dread creeping in. But the sound of chaos filled his ears. Just then, a last words Nathan delivered cut through the din, echoing in Elijah's heart like a dark bell tolling in the distance. "Let them see! The future is not yours, but my design!" As chaos descended, his mother clutched his arm. "Remember, Elijah, trust is the only way." The air crackled with doubt and hope entwined. The truth lingered at the edge, just out of reach, promising liberation, yet threatening ruin. That night, Neon Square morphed into a battlefield, a time of reckoning. In that pivotal moment, one question loomed above all. Would they rise together against the storm, or fall in its wake? The world away never felt so much like a reflection of his own heart, a deep yearning for clarity. Just then, The screens flickered brighter, revealing shadows that'd cling to his thoughts, the haunting whispers of betrayal mingling with the cry for freedom. Before darkness swallowed Nathan whole, there was a flicker, a chance, a flickering hope burning bright, urging Elijah onward as he faced the true fight ahead. And now, my friends, you have the power too. You must subscribe immediately so you don't miss these thrilling, exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now. It means the world to us. Flood the comment section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this wild ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even a second longer. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your support is what